I never knew I'd forgotten his face. Until a single night revealed my husband after 3 years. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I was standing in the dim glow of our living room, shadows lurking in the corners, each echo of silence swallowing my breaths. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a caged bird desperate to escape. I looked at the photographs lining our walls, smiling faces captured in time with one glaring absence. My husband, the love of my life, had faded from my memory like a ghost in the fog. Alone in that suffocating stillness, I felt the weight of my own despair. 3 years. 3 long years without knowing his laugh or how his eyes crinkled when he smiled. The warmth of his presence was just a whisper now. I searched for scraps of a man I once knew, once adored, yet found only memories that slipped through my fingers like sand. As I sank deeper into this abyss, voices of worry flickered around me. My mother, frantic with concern, had visited uninvited. She clasped my hands, trembling. "You need help, darling," she pleaded, her voice breaking. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Friends came and went, their worried glances lurking in every interaction. A sense of urgency filled the air, but still, I felt hollow. Something wasn't right. I sensed it in every shiver, in the way the shadows danced just out of reach, hiding truths I wasn't ready to face. Each night, I waited for the darkness to envelop me, yet every dawn brought the same confusion. Was he lost to me forever? The evening this unraveling story became too real, I found myself at a small, dimly lit bar, the kind that smelled of spilled beer and forgotten dreams. I sought solace at the edge of a crowded room, heart pounding with each laugh and clink of ice in glasses. And then, the atmosphere shifted. A familiar laugh cut through the noise, sending shivers down my spine. Turning my head, I saw him. My husband. I froze, breath caught in my throat. 3 years. 3 agonizing years, and yet here he was standing in front of me, but so changed, so distant. His eyes held secrets I couldn't comprehend, a mixture of confused recognition and impatience. My heart leapt, shattered, vibrated with 1,000 questions. My vision blurred, tears threatening to spill as I reached out. But then the unexpected happened. He turned, looking through me, as if I were nothing but a specter haunting his past. The crowd continued around us, oblivious. But I stood still, frozen in this unfolding nightmare. Did he truly forget me? Or had something darker cast its shadow over our love? Is this real? I whispered, my heart racing. Yet, he slipped farther away, lost in the sea of strangers. I felt the walls collapsing around me. The hollow ache in my chest ached louder than ever. How could I have forgotten his face? How could I stand here, paralyzed, while the man I loved evaporated into nothing? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The chill in the bar wrapped around me like a shroud, dragging my thoughts deeper into despair as I pushed through the tangled sea of people. As I stumbled back to reality, the flashing lights and pounding music merely amplified the chaos inside my mind. I needed air, clarity, anything to wash away the disorientation. Stepping outside, the cold night enveloped me, a stark contrast to the chaos inside. I leaned against the rough brick wall, grappling with the cacophony of emotions swirling within me. Did he see me? Did he feel the rush of memory as I did, or was that fleeting moment merely a whisper of a reality we once shared? Every conceivable thought jostled for space in my mind, spinning wildly. What had changed? Where had he been? The weight of the questions turned my stomach, twisting it with anxiety. The city hummed around me, its lights twinkling like stars, indifferent to my crisis. Yet, amidst that disconnection, something flickered, a spark of hope that perhaps he hadn't forgotten entirely, just mislaid the path back to me. Sudden footsteps startled me, bringing me back to the present. I turned to see a man, weary and worn, leaning against the wall opposite me. He looked just as lost, his demeanor hinting at burdens untold. Something in his eyes, an understanding born from his own struggles, seemed to anchor me momentarily. "Life can be a hell of a mess, he muttered, taking a drag from a cigarette, his voice a raspy echo of wisdom laced with vulnerability. I nodded, unable to find words that captured the turmoil raging inside. "Not for a stranger, not yet. Sometimes you find yourself just standing in front of things you'd rather forget," he added, flicking ash onto the pavement, eyes darting away as if embarrassed by the confession. His words struck a chord, resonating deeply. I replied, the vulnerability slipping into my tone. "I saw him tonight, my husband." He shifted slightly, intrigued, and edged closer. "I've learned that sometimes, seeing isn't the same as connecting. You might see a reflection, but the real person, they often remain hidden." It was a bittersweet truth. I craved that connection, yet the distance between us felt insurmountable. "What if he's forgotten me?" I whispered, the ache spilling over the surface like an unwelcome tide. The man sighed, his eyes softening. "You can be standing right in front of someone yet feel worlds apart. Don't lose heart. Sometimes the strongest connections endure the strongest storms." I met his gaze, finally recognizing the echo of kindness in a stranger's words. It was fleeting yet powerful, a thread of hope weaving through the chaos. Even in my darkest moments, kindness found a way to seep through, illuminating the corners of my doubt. After exchanging brief pleasantries, he melted back into the crowd, leaving me alone once more, but comforted in a way I hadn't anticipated. The chill of the night now felt less oppressive. As the minutes rolled on, I made my way back inside, pulse quickening. The bar felt somehow more familiar, with the echoes of laughter wrapping around me like a memory I struggled to remember. My gaze swept across the sea of strangers, determination blooming in my chest. And then I saw him again, me husband, a silhouette etched against the backdrop of colored lights. This time, I didn't freeze. My feet moved almost instinctively, cutting through the thrumming crowd. Each step pulsed with the grim hope of reclamation. When I reached him, my breath caught. His back was turned, familiar yet foreign, but I couldn't let the fear overtake me. "Please, just turn around," I murmured to myself, a prayer to the universe that perhaps he could hear me in the echoes of the night. Moments stretched into eternity, and just as I thought I would burst from the weight of waiting, he turned. Our eyes locked. The world around us faded into silence. Yet, there was a flicker of fear in his gaze, a shadow of uncertainty that sent a chill through me. "Who are you?" he asked, words laced with hesitance and disbelief. In that instant, my heart shattered anew. I had come to reclaim the love we shared, yet with those 3 words, he pulled the rug from beneath me once again. The question hung like an anchor, dragging me down into depths I never wanted to revisit. Was this really how our story would unfold? Would I have to fight to remind him who we were? The emptiness surged back, deeper than the shadows of the bar and more formidable than the doubts swirling in my mind. A realization loomed: the journey ahead was going to be far more treacherous than I had imagined. And as I struggled to find my voice amidst the tempest of emotions, the sharp ring of my phone cut through the silence, pulling me back. I glanced at the screen, heart thudding. It was a message from my mother, and the opening line rang through my mind like a clarion call: "We need to talk." With my heart racing and uncertainty creeping into the edges of hope, I knew this was only the beginning of unveiling the truth behind the shadows that had woven themselves into our lives. The weight of his words reverberated within me, echoing in the hollow chambers of my heart. As I stood there, my world crumbling around me, I stared back at the man I had loved, through memories that now felt so fragile, so distant. "Who are you?" It was a simple question, yet it carried the sharp edge of a knife, slicing into everything I had clung to for solace. "It's me, Madeline." I managed to whisper, my voice barely carrying through the thick haze of confusion that swirled between us. I searched his eyes for recognition, a flicker, an ember of the love we once shared, but all I found was a storm of uncertainty and shadows. He stood rigid, the space between us charged with a palpable tension. "Madeline? I don't remember." His admission fell into the silence, heavy and unyielding, leaving a trail of despair in its wake. I felt as though the ground had been pulled from beneath me, leaving only vast emptiness. I reached out instinctively, craving connection, even if only to bridge the yawning chasm that had opened between us. Please, just let me explain. We were happy, my voice caught, faltering under the weight of memories I longed to share, but words felt inadequate now, stumbling over the fragile memories like shards of glass. Happy? He echoed, shaking his head, the sunken circles beneath his eyes betraying stories that were now locked away. I don't know, Madeline. I can't remember anything. At that moment, I felt the tears I had tried so hard to hold back begin to slip down my cheeks unbidden, a silent testament to the heartache unfurling within. What happened to us? I asked, my voice cracking, a whisper caught in a storm. He looked away, as if the memories haunted him as they did me. I've been buried, I guess, he admitted softly. There's a fog, pulling me under. I feel it every day. And my heart raced, my thoughts racing desperately for a way to connect the pieces of us that still existed within the silence. I've been searching for you for 3 years. It was then that the flicker of recognition sparked in his eyes briefly, like lightning flashing across a darkened sky. Why would you look for me? Because I still believe in us. In what we had. I cried, desperation clawing at my throat. I refused to let you disappear into the fog like you never existed. For a moment, the world around us faded, the laughter and music blurred into a distant hum. It was just us, standing on the precipice of a forgotten love story. But his hesitation lingered, thickening the air between us, and my heart sank further. I don't know who I am anymore, he confessed, his voice laden with defeat. What if you're just a figment of my imagination, a memory I wish I could remember but can't? The thought sent another wave of despair crashing through me, but I knew I had to fight. You're not a figment, please, you're real. I'm real. We're real. There are a million moments only we share, moments that brought us joy, pain, life. Suddenly, the rage of longing that smoldered within me sparked anew. You said you feel buried, let me help you find your way back, I implored. He looked at me, his expression torn between safety and the allure of rediscovery. I wish I could, but what if I find nothing? What if I'm just creating more pain? Then we'll face it together, I replied, my voice steadying with each word born of hope. What we had isn't lost, it's just hidden away. Sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones worth fighting the most. Just then, my phone buzzed again, more insistently this time, a sharp contrast to the soft touch of the moment we were sharing. I hesitated, the unyielding dread that accompanied my mother's message loomed in the back of my mind. I need to see what that is, I said, reluctantly pulling away from him. As I glanced at the screen, anxiety squeezed at my chest. The message was terse and alarmingly direct. Madeline, it's urgent. You won't believe what I've found. I looked up, but his fragile resolve hung in the air between us like a fragile veil, poised to shatter. I'll be right back, I promised, my heart racing with unspoken fears. Please don't go anywhere. I stepped to the side, adrenaline flushing my cheeks as I processed the panic racing through my veins. What could my mother have uncovered that warranted such urgency? And would it bring me any closer to reclaiming my husband, or would it only thrust me deeper into this dark abyss? With uncertainty swirling like a tempest within me, I hit reply to my mother, my fingers trembling. Before I could grasp the gravity of my husband's situation, before the revelations waiting for me could break through the surface, I felt someone's presence behind me. My breath caught, and I didn't need to turn around. I knew who it was. The weight of dread settled heavily in my chest. What if my mother's message and the truth about my husband were intertwined in a way that would rip us apart forever? The air was thick with unanswered questions as I turned slowly, half expecting to find him Gonian illusion slipping further into the depths of darkness. But there he stood, a haunting figure wreathed in shadows. The hazel of his eyes, once vibrant and alive, flashed with a mixture of confusion and fear, reflecting my own spirals of uncertainty. Madeline, who is it? His voice trembled, a fragile leaf in a storm, barely anchored by the reality we were navigating. It's just my mother, I murmured, fighting to keep my composure, though a chill ran through me at the thought of what she might reveal. I'll take care of it. I just need to know what she found, are you sure? He shifted, his hesitation palpable. "You seem scared." What did I even know of fear now? It had wrapped its icy fingers so tightly around my heart that I scarcely recognized the warmth of hope anymore. His worry sent a flicker through me. After all this time, after 3 long years marred by longing and loss, wasn't he the one who should be afraid? "I'm fine," I tried to assure him, yet those words felt brittle, cracking under the weight of truth. "Really, I just need to understand what's happening." As I typed a swift, shaky response to my mother's message, I felt the pressure of his gaze upon me. It was a sweet burden, much like the joy of warmth on a frigid day, yet dripping with an unasked question. "What if it's bad news? What if it sends you away from me again?" I paused, a memory flashing vividly in my mind. The day he proposed, the laughter echoing on the light breeze, the warmth of the sun on our faces as we promised forever, blissfully unaware of what fate had in store. "We stay together no matter what," I whispered, feeling my commitment shift from the past into the fragile present. "But what if my past is lost completely? If I find nothing?" The despair etched his features, casting deep lines across his brow. "I don't want you to be scared of the memories that have yet to surface," I said earnestly. "Your past may be hidden, but that doesn't mean it can't be found. Even if it hurts, I believe it'll lead us back to each other." The seconds stretched into eternity as I tapped the screen, my heart pounding louder than the chaotic thoughts crowding my mind. The response came almost instantly. "Madeline, it's about the accident. The police report reveals something about you, your past, your husband, and why he can't remember. Meet me at the cafe." Urgency sliced through me, crystallizing my fears into something palpable. "I need to go," I announced, but the tremor in my voice betrayed my fragility. At that instant, the Kafia place that had once been a sanctuary for us now loomed as a dark portal to the truth. "I'll come with you," he said, stepping forward, determination igniting in his eyes, embracing the broken shards of courage that rested there. "If it's about me, if it's about us, I need to be there." I opened my mouth, ready to protest, but the unwavering resolve in his gaze stole my voice. How could I deny him the chance to discover, to reclaim parts of himself long buried? "All right," I relented, taking a deep breath, my heart entwining with his in a way I couldn't fully comprehend. "But you need to promise me no matter what we learn, we will face it together." His solemn nod sent a flicker of warmth through the icy dread coiling in my chest. Together, we took those first tentative steps toward the cafe, the world blurring around us. I could feel the pull of time, the seams of our love fraying but still tethered, holding us together like frayed threads stitched into a patchwork blanket. As we approached the cafe entrance, a familiar figure emerged with a purpose that darkened my heart. "Madeline," my mother called, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "You need to hear what I found." My breath hitched in my throat. "What did you discover?" She hesitated, glancing over at my husband, a subtle shift that ignited the bubbling dread deep within me. "It's not just about him. There are things you need to know about yourself and why this happened." The words fell like stones, heavy and unyielding, a revelation buried beneath layers of urgency. My pulse quickened, but before I could respond, my husband stepped forward, ghostly determination flickering in his gaze. "Tell us everything." The weight of uncertainty shifted, curving dangerously between us, but in that moment, bound by fragile threads of hope and fear, we stood at the precipice of revelation. Yet, as my mother stepped forward to speak, a stranger caught my eye, one I never anticipated. A figure emerging from the shadows outside the cafe, their expression a tapestry of familiarity and dread that unraveled me. "Mark?" I breathed, taking an involuntary step backward. The name came spilling from my lips, echoing against the walls of my uncertainty and despair. As the fog began to clear, so did the lines of fate drawn across our lives, lines I hadn't realized were forever altered. And at that moment, as I stood between two worlds, I realized, the past wasn't simply resurfacing, it was crashing back into our lives with an urgency I couldn't ignore, forcing me to confront the depths of my deepest fears and the truth I had buried for far too long. The cafe buzzed with life, the air heavy with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and whispered secrets. The once comforting chatter now felt like an army of voices, drowning out the frantic beating of my heart as confusion twisted in my gut, stark and unyielding. "Mark," I repeated, the name hanging in the air like a piece of shattered glass, sharp and dangerous. The figure standing in the doorway was a ghost from my past, a faint flicker of familiarity that sent ripples of memory cascading through me like waves in a tumultuous sea. Why was he here now, when everything was in such perilous balance? Mark stepped forward, his gaze flitting between me and my husband, the weight of the moment pressing heavily upon him. "I had to come, I didn't know it was you," he stammered, a tremor lacing his voice that blended with the noise surrounding us. "Excuse me?" The word burst from my lips, more out of instinct than comprehension. The fabric of our lives had been stitched so intricately that I couldn't unravel this sudden apparition. "Madeline, it's okay." My husband's voice broke through the daze, grounding me as he shot me a glance filled with inexplicable understanding, though the wrinkles of concern marred his brow. "We should hear him out. No," I whispered, the panic bubbling up from deep inside, nearly overwhelming me. "This is the last person I want to see right now. Not with everything hanging by a thread." "Please," Mark broke in, desperation lining his voice. He took another step, the tension taut between us. "It's not what you think. I can help. There are things I know, memories that might explain everything." My mother, still lingering behind me, exchanged glances with my husband, her expression a mixture of trepidation and support. "Madeline, if he can help, you know," I interrupted, but the determination in their eyes challenged my resolve. The truth lurked in the shadows, waiting to be unveiled, and here stood someone whose existence was intricately woven into my own tangled past. Confusion mingled with fear, swirling like a tornado within me. Without waiting for another second to fester, I turned to my husband. "I can't do this with him here. I need to protect you from whatever chaos is coming. We need the truth," he insisted, the fierceness in his tone commanding, yet soothing. "It may not make sense right now, but we have to confront these ghosts, Madeline. Remember, we walk this path together." And there it was, the unbreakable thread. They weren't only shadows that haunted me, they were pieces of the puzzle I had long buried. My heart wrestled with the choice stretching out before me like a yawning crevasse. "Fine," I finally relented, my voice trembling but resolute. "But only if we all sit down and talk this through. No secrets." Mark nodded, a wave of relief washing over his features, although uncertainty riddled the air like static electricity. We moved toward a corner table, the familiar clatter of chairs barely masking the spiral of anxiety wrapping around my heart. Settling in, I glanced between the two men I had entwined my life with, my husband's brooding gaze still framed by confusion, and Mark's pallor, reflecting the consequences of years lost in fog. "What do you know?" I finally asked, my voice thick with trepidation. He took a deep breath, collecting thoughts shaped by shadows. "It's about the night of the accident. I saw it happen, Madeline. I was there." A tremor ran through my body, ice gathering beneath my skin. You lost everything because I couldn't get to you in time." "Lost what?" The words escaped my lips in a whisper, confusion blurring into despair. "The truth about your husband's memory, about why he can't remember anything of that night," he responded, eyes averted as if the weight of those words was pressing down too hard. "You need to know that he wasn't the only one trapped in that moment. You've been struggling with something, too." "What are you saying?" My voice wavered as if I were standing on a cliff, peering into the fray below. Mark's expression twisted with pain. "You and your husband, what you don't remember, it connects us all. There were secrets, things left buried and unspoken." The world around me blurred, the cafe plunging into an echoing silence. Every heart-stopping moment stretched between us, binding our fates in ways I did not yet comprehend. "Stop it," I cried, panic rising as the shadows began to flicker with hazy details. "Just tell me what I lost. Why can't I remember? I can't explain everything here." Mark steeled himself, his voice dropping to a near whisper, eyes darting around as if sensing unseen forces. "But it's because of the choices we made. The decisions we never could take back, things that might tear us apart." A sudden rush of heat flushed through my fear, frustration, a wild anger igniting a storm inside. "Then tell me, Mark. I'm tired of tiptoeing around this, tired of denying the inevitable." As if sensing the chaos exploding within me, my husband reached out, grasping my hand tightly. "Madeline, we can face this. Whatever it is, together." But just as a flicker of hope ignited, a figure from the edge of the cafe raised their voice, bursting through crowds of laughter and oblivion. Madeline. I'm so sorry I'm late. A blood-chilling realization flooded through me when I recognized the voice. My heart dropped as I turned, staring into the face I had tried to forget, the face of the man I had loved before all of this, who had bound my fate to his like a cruel twist of destiny. Michael, I gasped, as the memories of a lifelong entangled suddenly swarmed like bees unleashed from their hive, colliding violently with the present as the ground beneath me began to tremble. Suddenly, the choices I thought were behind me surged to the surface, wrestling with the shadows of my past. The truth, I realized, hadn't merely come to haunt me. It had returned to shatter everything I thought I had known, and for the first time since our lives collided in chaos, I faced the darkness rising around me, uncertain of who I would emerge as on the other side. The cafe's vibrancy faded into a dull hum, the chatter of intimate conversations morphing into a wall of sound that pressed against my ears as Michael stepped closer. I could hardly process the shock of seeing him here, my heart racing as old, familiar feelings began to flicker to life against my better judgment. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper, the words quaking with fear. Memories flooded back, intoxicating laughter, moments of quiet intimacy, the warmth of his embrace that had once felt like home. But now, it all felt tainted, like a cruel joke from a twisted fate. "I am sorry, Madeline. I didn't know you'd be here. I came to meet someone." He hesitated, his eyes darting beyond me, as if searching for approval, or perhaps, understanding. "Things have changed. You have to know I've never stopped caring about you." Mark's tension crackled like electricity in the air, each second stretching painfully as he stood. My husband, ever the steady rock in my storm, shifted closer in an instinctive protective gesture, shielding me from the wave of emotions that threatened to sweep me away. "We were just talking about the past," he said, his voice like steel against the chaos. "You might want to sit this one out." Michael looked between us, surprise etched across his features at the unexpected dynamic unfolding at the cafe. "What do you mean, the past? Has something happened?" "All of it," I breathed, my heart caught in my throat. I turned my gaze back to Mark, weighing heavily the choices that had brought us to this moment, a tangled web of memories and emotions. "Everything is so blurry." Mark took a step toward me. "Madeline, let's not dive in deeper than we're ready for. Bringing him into this shadows dance could ignite something we are not prepared to handle yet." Michael's brow knitted as he steadied himself, seemingly rooted in place. "Madeline, please, I've missed you. I need to explain." "You don't get to explain anything," I snapped, the weight of anguish and anger crashing down upon me, the air thick with unspoken words. "You were part of that night that changed everything. You need to understand how your ghost still haunts me." A flicker of hurt crossed Michael's face, it cut through me like a knife. Perhaps the part of me that still cared wished to reach out, but the burning rage and confusion overpowered it. "You think you can just walk in, shake my world, and expect everything to resume as if nothing changed?" He opened his mouth, but Mark interrupted, his voice softer now, tempered by a hint of understanding for the pain we all shared. "Madeline, let's just breathe for a moment. Every thread woven into this tapestry is important, and if we unravel it now we may never recover." Yes, Mark's words swirled around the table. Reality started to converge with fractured memories, igniting fragments of a story I had not fully grasped. The night of the accident, the moments leading up to it, I shied from the truth for so long. The truth was still cloaked in that elusive fog, but I could feel it inching closer, threatening to break. "Did I want to hear from you, Michael?" I said, my voice steadied by a newfound determination amid the chaos. "But you have to promise to be honest. No excuses." "The truth," he faltered, drawing a sharp breath, his eyes shimmering with unshed memories. "The truth is I've been haunted by that night too. It was my driving that led us to the brink. I had enough. Just tell me what you know," I urged, urgency cracking through my calm. "How do all these pieces fit together?" But before he could respond, the cafe door swung open with a resolute thud, and the lively chatter shifted as a new presence filled the room. A cloaked figure, shrouded in an aura of despair, strode in. The atmosphere grew dense, a sudden chill punctuating the warmth of the cafe. "Madeline." The voice rang through the air, tinged with urgency, pulling my heart from its tether. "You need to listen to Met. Here are things you haven't even begun to understand." My breath hitched as I squinted against the light, trying to make sense of the ragged face distorting through the veil of surprise and shock. It was Claire, the sister of the friend I had lost in the accident, a name that had stood like a tombstone in our shared grief. Claire? My voice barely emerged, raw with disbelief. What could she possibly want? What more truths were to be unveiled? Please, I haven't come here to stir up old wounds, but you need to realize there's much more at play. Your memory is a string of lies, Madeline, and breaking the silence is the only way to find peace. She stepped closer, her eyes piercing into mine, unraveling the layers that shielded my heart. What are you talking about? Desperation slipped into my words, desperation competing with a flicker of hope. Could this be the moment when shards of my past could finally align into a semblance of clarity? Or was this merely another chaotic turn in my spiraling journey into darkness? I know the truth about the accident. I saw everything, she whispered, her voice breaking as anguish swirled in her eyes. You don't know what I know about Michael and Mark, and everything that night changed for all of us. Crimson filled my vision as the walls I'd put up began to crack, revealing the trembling pulses of what lay just beneath the surface. Tell me, I urged, trembling with the weight of reality bending dangerously close around me, unraveling fibers of hope that were desperately clinging to my heart. But before Claire could utter the words that threatened to shatter my fragile existence, darkness began to draw closer, silencing the moment as deeper shadows concealed the truth amid the chaos. The air grew heavy with uncertainty, pressing against my chest as I stood motionless, gazing at Claire. Her presence felt like a shard of glass thrust into the space that had been filled with silence for too long. I could sense the tightening of Mark's grip on my arm beside me, his protective intuition instinctively flaring up as if preparing to guard me against whatever pieces of truth Claire was about to unveil. Madeline, you have to understand, Claire implored, her voice shaky, yet resolute. That night didn't just claim one life, it shattered the lives of everyone involved. There are things I've held back all this time, but I can't do that anymore. Then don't. I pleaded, the desperation in my voice rising. Let me hear your truth. Whatever it is. I'm ready. Michael, who had remained silent, now looked as though he was on the verge of breaking. There was a flicker of vulnerability beneath his hardened facade, a reflection of his longing for redemption. I had felt that yearning before, but could it ever be enough? Madeline. Claire took a deep breath, her blue eyes glimmering with a mix of pain and urgency. You need to know that what happened was not just the result of poor choices. There's more to the story, and I'm the only one who can help you connect the dots. I echoed, my heart thrumming wildly as I digested her fragmented hints. What dots? Please, just say it. Keep cutting the strings on this web before it suffocates us. Your memory of that night, it's clouded by grief, by a construct of blame and guilt that was never yours to carry. Claire's words danced along the edges of my perception like fragile whispers borne on the wind. There was something more, something that changed everything before it was out of our control. They can't be right, Mark murmured, anguish audible in his voice. No one was supposed to know what happened. Why does it matter? I pressed, redirecting my fervent attention back to Claire. Tell me what you witnessed, please. I need to understand. Claire's face contorted for a brief moment, the shadows of memory flickering across her countenance. I was there, you know. I saw what happened right before the crash. It was like watching a series of events unfold in slow motion. I wanted to intervene as soon as I identified the signs, but I was too far away. And when I finally got close enough to shout out, it was too late. The weight of her revelation slammed into me, and my breath caught in my throat. You were there. Why didn't you? I was scared. Scared of how it would shake our lives, how it would push us into the abyss that we all fell into, she admitted, choking on her own words. And then there was blame that could land on Michael and Mark. As Claire continued, she painted a picture that felt foreign yet intimately close. About how, in their youthful spirits and carelessness, Michael and Mark had thrived in an ignorance that propelled them into danger. About split-second decisions that ended with a heart-stopping gasp of horror and regret. The urgency in Claire's words was palpable, but the stirring fear inside me began to outweigh the promise of clarity. I thought of Mark, of his steadfast loyalty through the dark seasons of my life, and the way he held my hand when the ghosts of memory threatened to repeat their haunting lullabies. Could Claire's truth unravel that security? Madeline, Mark said softly, his voice an anchor amidst the tempest. You can listen to her, but please don't let it distort what we've built together. What I've fought for, what if all those decisions I thought were made in anguish were clouded by lies and half-truths? My voice trembled. It could change everything. A moment of silence enveloped our chaotic space, leaving echoes of uncertainty in its wake. I could feel Michael's tension rising, and yet, I could also sense his yearning, his hope to mend a part of himself that reverberated with remorse. Madeline, please, he pleaded. There is so much I need to say. If you give me a chance, don't. I cut him off, a sudden fervor coursing through me. Right now, you're not the center of this. Claire came here, and we owe her that respect. It's the only way to untangle this mess. As I glanced at Claire, the vulnerability in her expression morphed into courage. It's not just about what you think you remember. It's about uncovering what you've buried deep inside. It holds the answers, she insisted, her voice stronger now. Then prove it, I challenged, my heart racing anew as I confronted every unsafe corner where doubt lingered. Tell me everything, and I'll hold on to the truth for dear life if it means freeing us from the shackles of this haunted past. Claire opened her mouth to respond, but as the cafe's atmosphere shifted once more, the door swung open, and a gust of wind whirled around us, chilling the warmth shared in our small haven. A figure stepped through the threshold, one I recognized immediately, the unmistakable form of Jason, a mutual friend intertwined in the tragedy of it all. It was a face I hadn't seen since the accident. Madeline? He called out, confusion and concern merging in his voice as he locked eyes with me from across the room. I need to speak to you now, Jason. Not now. Mark interjected, instinctively stepping between Jason and me, protectiveness radiating off him like a shield, but I felt a rush of adrenaline propel me forward, my curiosity twisted with trepidation. No, let him speak. In that moment, the fragile balance we had tried to hold began to unravel, the threads of our tangled past pulling tighter, threatening to ensnare us in an emotional storm. In the face of new revelations, uncertainties loomed larger than life, wrapping themselves around every breath I took as Jason stepped closer. Madeline, you need to know what Claire has to say, and what I should have said long ago, he said, his gaze shifting between all of us, weighing unseen burdens as he prepared to unveil truths I could hardly fathom. With my heart pounding violently against my ribs, I realized this was no longer just about uncovering a tangled past, it was the brink of a cascading fallout that threatened not only my reality but the very nature of the bond one had with Mark. My mind raced as I clenched my fists, daring to hope for the answers that both terrified and exhilarated me, but deep down, amid the chaos, I felt the chill of the winds that bore all that was left unspoken, aware that this was merely another prologue to the storm brewing in our hearts. The cafe felt suddenly smaller, as if the air had thickened and drawn in around us. Jason's presence was an unwelcome reminder of the past I had desperately been trying to navigate, as he stood at the periphery of our fractured group. I could see his own ghosts haunting his sunken eyes, a reflection of the night I had tried to evade discussing. Every fragment of my reality seemed poised on the edge of collapse. What do you want, Jason? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. I could feel Mark's tension vibrating through the space between us, his protective instincts kicking in, but there was something about the urgency in Jason's expression that made my heart race faster, a warning and an invitation rolled into one. That I want to talk to you about that night. About what I didn't say then, what I guess I've been too scared to admit, he stammered, glancing back at Mark. You need to know the truth. My pulse quickened. You knew something? About the crash? The anger thrummed within me, mingling with confusion. How could he have held back information for so long? Jason exhaled, his breath shaky. I should have spoken up sooner. I let my fear control my silence when it mattered most. His hands moved restlessly, betraying his nervousness. Tu saw more than any of us realized. I was there just before it happened, and I ended up a witness to the chaos that unfolded. I watched the decisions made that led to your pain. Madeline. Behind him, Claire stepped forward, her brow creasing with worry. Jason, maybe now isn't the right time. No, let him speak. I implored, clutching at Claire's words, desperate for connection to this whirlwind of unresolved emotions. What did you see? The cafe dimmed around us, my surroundings fading into muffled echoes of clinking dishes and quiet conversations, The only sound sharper than my own heartbeat was Jason's heavy, ragged breathing. I saw Michael and I saw Laura before the crash. I saw them fighting, and in those moments, things turned chaotic. It's not just that they made poor choices, they were struggling in a way that many didn't understand. That night it was less about recklessness and more about desperation. Desperation? The word slipped from my lips like it was foreign. What do you mean? There were things going on with Laura that I didn't realize until afterward. Secrets she kept close, Jason continued, glancing at Michael who stood silent, jaw clenched. I should have said something to you right away, but I thought silence would keep you safe. I didn't know it would only deepen the hurt. The air was suffocating as I absorbed his words, small tremors of realization beginning to break through my earlier resolve. Secrets. What secrets could Laura have held that prompted such instability, turning one fateful night into a dance with tragedy? You wouldn't understand, Michael broke in, his voice thick with emotion. We were all trying to survive in our way by lying. I shot back, my anger flaring. By burying the truth until it overcame any sense of closure for those left behind. You don't know what it's like, Madeline, Jason interjected, his voice almost pleading. To stand by and watch your friends make decisions you can't control, to feel powerless. It eats away at you, and yet you remained quiet, Mark countered, stepping toward Jason with a might that held back a wave of pent-up frustration. You had the chance to speak the truth, and yet he was scared. Jason snapped, his voice raising and trembling. I was afraid that if I pulled back the curtain, it would shatter the fragile reality we had left. As tension pulsated between us like an electric current, I stepped back, my mind racing. Instead of bringing healing, the truth only seemed to cause more wounds. And here we are, I murmured, bound in this vicious cycle of guilt and silence. This doesn't feel any closer to a resolution. Mark's hand found mine, gripping tight, grounding me in a sea of confusion. There has to be a way through this. Together, he implored. But I feared the tides were already too strong for us to navigate honorably. Madeline, Claire said, her voice breaking through the chaos. You deserve to know every piece of what happened, every moment that led to that tragedy. I could tell you, but I know it would spiral into something even darker. I felt the walls I'd started to erect crumble. What does that mean? Her eyes bore into mine, shimmering with unshed tears. There are things I still haven't allowed myself to confront, things Laura never revealed. You might not want to hear it, but it intertwines our stories, all of our stories. It could mean we aren't as separate from each other as we thought, she admitted, the hesitance evident in her voice. This was a turmoil I had never anticipated, a deeper, darker layer lurking beneath the surface, pulling us all into its whirlpool of unresolved traumas. The realization nearly knocked the breath out of me. Perhaps all of us were drowning in this mess that stretched back before the accident, lingering like shadows too stubborn to fade. Before I could respond, Jason's expression shifted, morphing from guilt to something urgent. There's one more thing, Madeline. One detail I didn't mention. They are not the only ones hiding from the truth, Michael declared, his tone suddenly sharp, eyes darkening. You are too. What are you talking about? I challenged defensively, heart pounding. My mind swirled with disbelief. Was there more? Was I, too, stuck in a loop of lies? Your memories, he emphasized, the accusation hanging in the air. The things you think you've buried, maybe they never fully left you. Suddenly, everything felt precarious once again, the cliff of uncertainty looming before me, tantalizingly close. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, the door swung violently open once more, a frigid gust of wind rushing in. The ominous crack of thunder rumbled outside, echoing the chaos we had unwittingly invited. In that moment, it hit me the haunting shadows of shared anguish were only just beginning to reveal themselves. As my heart trembled, laden with the weight of unspoken truths and buried memories, a piercing clarity washed over me. Everyone had been touched by the tragedy, and the scars ran deeper than I had ever imagined. As the storm gathered, both inside and out, I turned to Jason. What do you mean by my memories? What are you trying to say? But the darkness loomed, and the answer remained just out of reach, suspended like a slow-motion nightmare. I had barely begun to understand the tides of our past, but the reckoning awaited. Faced with a truth that threatened to shatter every tether I had, I sensed that the depths of anguish were destined to rise, threatening to pull us all back into the churning waters once more. The cafe became a dizzying vortex of confusion, the shadows of our past looming higher with every second that passed. Just as the air thickened with unspoken truths, the abrupt storm outside became a mirror to the tumult within. I felt Mark's grip on my hand tighten, a silent reassurance in the midst of disarray. But as I turned to face Jason again, a sinking dread settled deep in my stomach. What do you mean by my memories? I pressed more urgently, desperate for clarity amidst my spiraling thoughts. He looked uneasy, shifting as if he were bracing himself against an invisible tide. I think there are things you don't remember. Things you've suppressed. They could be the missing pieces to understanding everything. The world around us blurred into a haze. Memories were like the whispers of ghosts, haunting, elusive. What do you know about my memories? I demanded, the tendrils of fear coiling tighter around my chest. Jason hesitated, casting furtive glances at the others. I don't know how to explain it, but I saw something happen to you that night, something you've buried deep. I thought different things happened in the chaos, but I realized it was just as painful for you. What are you talking about? The words tumbled out, frantic and sharp. What happened to me? Before Jason could respond, Claire stepped in, her voice thick with emotion. There's more to that night than just the accident. You were in shock, and I think it altered how you perceive what happened. I shook my head, denying her words, fighting back against the rising tide of confusion. No, I remember enough. Do you? Claire's eyes shone like glass, reflecting empathy laced with anguish. What if your brain decided to shield you from the truth? What if you actively chose to forget? There was a tremor in her voice, causing mine to falter. I had spent years trying to piece together the fragments of my life after the crash. I thought I had the story down, the narrative of loss, sorrow, and the void Laura and Michael left behind. But now, I wasn't so sure. Mark leaned in, his voice a ground wire in the storm swirling around us. Madeline, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to not remember it all. But if there's something you've pushed away, if it could help us understand more of what really happened. Just as I thought hope flickered, Jason spoke again, his tone grave. There were things I saw that night in the chaos, things that could change everything we think we know. A whisper erupted in my mind. What if all of us had been dancing along the edges of a truth so raw it threatened to consume us? A truth we were too terrified to confront. I need to know. I breathed through the suffocating fear. Tell me, Jason. Tell me everything. The words hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation wrapped in one. As I stared into his eyes, the storm began to rage outside, the rain morphing into a frenzy against the windows. My heart thundered along with the storm, desperation paralyzing me. Jason seemed to gather strength, his face resolute. I don't think you were just a bystander, Madeline. I think you were right there in the thick of it. Something happened just before the accident. What do you mean? My breath hitched, every word pulling me deeper into a chasm of uncertainty. There was an intensity to Jason's gaze, as if the weight of his confession would crash down upon me. I saw you fight that night. You were arguing with Michael, desperately trying to make him see. You tried to bring Laura back, to pull her from the brink, but it spiraled into chaos. I should have stopped it. I could have said something. Stop. I screamed, though my voice cracked under the strain of it all. The unfolding revelation felt like jagged glass piercing through me. No, this can't be true. I can't. Madeline. Mark's voice softened, his presence a steady flame against the tempest. If there's truth to what Jason's saying, maybe it can help you heal. But healing was a distant horizon, blurred by fog. I can't bear it. The words were raw, scraped from the depths of my heart. What if I wasn't strong enough to fight? What if I don't think it's about strength anymore? It's about uncovering the truth, so we don't fight in the dark anymore, Claire interjected gently, her voice carrying a current of understanding. Just then, a flash of lightning illuminated the cafe, casting stark shadows over our faces, and for a fleeting moment, I felt trapped between the fractures of memory and the hint of a past I couldn't fully grasp. The feelings shifted, and a weightless tension filled the air like electricity. What did you mean when you said I might have forgotten? I pressed Jason, feeling ruptured yet yearning for connection. What am I hiding? What am I missing? The storm outside roared, a primal sound echoing the tempest within me. Jason took a deep breath. There's one last thing, Madeline. He hesitated, the words caught in his throat. Something even I couldn't understand, something that happened before the fight, something I know you carried with you, and then came the shock, the piercing truth laden with implications that brought the world crashing to a halt in that moment. Your husband, Madeline, he wasn't there by accident. My breath hitched, and my heart seized. All eyes were fixated on me, unearthing old wounds I thought had finally scabbed over. My mind raced. Michael wasn't just a friend that night, he had become a part of a much larger and damning story that began well before the first crash. The realization hit me like the storm, the confusion, anger, and fear merging into a tempest all its own. Madeline? Mark's voice laced with concern pulled me back, but I remained anchored in the swirling chaos of what was revealed and what still remained buried. What do you remember? But time suspended as Jason's words echoed relentlessly in my mind. I had just begun to uncover the threads of our tragedy, and I feared the tapestry drew darker than I had ever been prepared for. The chaos of my thoughts blurred into an indistinguishable haze, and the world around me faded into a mere canvas for the memories that rushed back like a tidal wave crashing ashore. The remnants of conversations I'd buried, the weight of my love for Mark, and the guilt that pulled my heartstrings fused together, swirling in an intricate dance that threatened to suffocate me. Your husband, Madeline, he wasn't there by accident. Those words hung in the air, demanding my full attention, reminding me of ties I couldn't fully comprehend. It was like stepping into a surreal dream, only the stakes were terrifyingly real. I could feel the collective breath of everyone at the table, eyes glued to me like they held secrets I could no longer ignore. Mark, I whispered, desperation clawing at my chest as the storm thundered around us. What does this mean? What did Jason say? He leaned closer, desperation mirrored in his gaze. Tell me. Before I could formulate the swirling thoughts, Claire's voice intertwined with the tumult of emotions that enveloped us. There's something deeper at play, Madeline. Something connected to the choices made, interwoven in all our lives. Her revelations churned within me, unearthing layers of truth I had stifled for so long. Madeline. Jason's voice broke through the layers of haze, his urgency pulling my focus back to him. The events of that night twisted everything. The truth, it's more than just about what my eyes saw. It's about relationships spiraling out of control, an unexpected entanglement of love and loss. The fear rising within me ignited a painful truth. I had kept my heart away from the very man who had held me during the storm long enough, yet knowing that Michael had been there, fleeting and haunting, stung more than anything I could have imagined. You mean choices were made that led to? My breath trembled, catching at the cusp of revelation, unsteady ground beneath me. Mark's voice grounded me, strong yet gentle. No one can take over your life, Madeline. It was your love for each other, perhaps fighting against that recklessness, that drove you the passion. But his words felt like a knife carving deeper. The days of laughter we once shared flitted through my mind, twisted together like the shadows that lingered on our walls. What if that tumult existed within? What if our affection was never built on solid ground? I confessed, fatigue clouding my mind. The despair echoed in Jason's eyes as if he carried a weight only he could understand. Madeline, there's more, he urged, a resurgence of fervor coursing through me. There's a story that you didn't get to see. There's always more than just silence, more than just loss. His words caught in the fray, and desperation wrapped around my heart, squeezing tighter. I fixed on his restless gaze, seeking the answers I feared to unearth. What did I miss? You buried something, he continued, the weight of his knowledge echoed in the air thick as smoke. I need you to acknowledge it. You were so much closer than you thought to understanding everything that night. You felt something, didn't you? You knew the dangers lurking. Memories surged, almost like a violent flash of light, illuminating the corners of recollections once shadowed into oblivion, surfacing like gasps lost in a storm. I remembered how I had held Mark as the storm brewed, the taste of blood on my tongue as it mixed with that lowering wave of regret. Just then, seemingly woven into the fabric of my fear, the door swung open with a thunderous clap, the storm outside blending with the roar of voices around me. A lone figure approached, one that held my breath captive. Madeline. My heart stopped as I recognized the distant echo of my own Nemean utterance flowing from the lips of a familiar stranger. Laura. The shadows shifted, revealing her features as she surged forward through the whirlpool of memories entangled in chaos. The darkness behind her seemed to echo every heartache we had carried. "I'm so sorry for everything. What are you doing here?" I gasped, the emotions battling for dominance in my throat. Years of yearning buried in unsuspected corners flared hot. "I had to come for you. There are so many things I never had the courage to face," she confessed, her eyes glistening, reflecting the tears I hadn't allowed myself to shed. "You were never meant to carry this alone." Suddenly a rush of understanding lit the air between us. "What do you mean?" I pressed, my words part question, part plea for the truth I could no longer evade. In that moment, the storm outside matched the turmoil inside, intertwining our fates as we confronted the ghosts of our pasts together. "I made choices," she whispered, her voice cracking under the pressure of years spent recoiling from the reality we had once inhabited as friends, then strangers. "And when everything fell apart, I distanced myself, convinced it was my fault, our fault." The pain wrapped around my heart like a vice, acknowledging that her burdens echoed my own. "I lost myself in it, lost the part of me that mattered most," Laura continued, her words breaking through the haze clouding my reality. "You needed me that night, and I failed you both. I lost you," I whispered in understanding, my own grief palpable. The realization settled in. There were wounds deeper than I had ever allowed myself to fathom. Mark's presence enveloped me, a firm anchor in a place pulled in every direction. "Madeline, all of us were losing ourselves in the blame. The truth is, we each owe it to ourselves to unearth those buried memories together." With a rush of clarity, I felt the tendrils of understanding grow strong. We were all responsible for the pain, for the choices left behind, and perhaps, just perhaps, healing began from the rubble we'd built around us. "Together," I echoed, the word resonating vibrantly, as the storm echoed my heart, wild yet hopeful. In unison, we shared the burden, the unseen roots of regret etched into our lives unspooled one moment at a time. This was no longer just about recovering from the past, it had become a collective journey toward forgiving ourselves. And in that moment, standing amidst those who had shaped my story, I realized we could only unravel this tempest together, confessing fears, voicing regrets, allowing the truth to weave our shattered selves into something precious once more. As I searched the faces surrounding me, each etched with determination and vulnerability, I felt the warm tendril of acceptance weaving its way into the fabric of what was left. We were fallible, flawed beings entwined in the darkness, temporarily lost in the haze of our own making. "I don't know where this journey leads," I said, allowing my heart to open as I stepped toward Mark and reached for Laura, pulling her into the circle we would create anew. "But I promise I'll face every storm that comes with each of you by my side. Together, we choose to heal." As warmth blossomed in the storm's aftermath, I felt a bond strengthen, a promise forged in the fires of anguish rising from ashes. And in that moment, I took a deep breath, inhaling the bittersweet essence of forgiveness, a promise that would weave us closer into the light of a new beginning, creating space for whatever might come next. Rain dripped slowly from the awning outside, the clouds parting just enough to allow a sliver of sunlight to break through, illuminating our entwined souls and the road ahead. "Together," Mark echoed, his voice thick with emotion. And I knew then, in the heart of the storm, transformation began with acceptance. All darkness gives birth to light, and tomorrow awaited just around the corner, bright and filled with hope for all of us, together. Tomorrow is ours, and I choose to remember. And together in that moment, in the embrace of the light, we found our way home.